Imagine being handed the keys to the British economy, opening the door, and discovering the entire house is not just on fire, but also sinking into quicksand while simultaneously being invaded by an army of pensioners who refuse to leave. Welcome to Rachel Reeves' current predicament. The Chancellor has reportedly been given a political ultimatum that would make even the most seasoned Westminster survivor break into a cold sweat. Fix the demographic time bomb ticking away at Britain's economic future, or face the political guillotine. No pressure, Rachel. Absolutely none whatsoever. Quick favor. If you are enjoying this absolute chaos, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Over 94% of you have not yet. It is completely free, takes literally 2 seconds, and genuinely helps us keep exposing these political dramas. Cheers if you did. Right, back to Rachel's nightmare. So let us paint the picture properly, shall we? The House of Lords Economic Affairs Committee, a group of distinguished individuals who apparently enjoy delivering devastating news, has just published a report that essentially says Britain is sleepwalking into an economic catastrophe. The report, titled Preparing for an Aging Society, might as well have been called We Are Absolutely Done For if we do not sort this out immediately. The committee's conclusion? Britain is, and I quote, alarmingly unprepared for the demographic tsunami heading our way. Alarmingly unprepared. That is the kind of phrase that keeps chancellors awake at night, staring at spreadsheets and contemplating career changes. Here is where things get properly fascinating. The report suggests that Rachel Reeves needs to implement tax incentives to get people over 60 back into work. Now, think about that for a moment. We have spent decades telling people to work hard, save up, and enjoy a well-deserved retirement. And now the government is essentially saying, actually, about that retirement thing, would you mind terribly coming back to work? We will throw in some tax breaks. Please. We are desperate. It is like planning a massive leaving party for someone, complete with speeches and a gold watch, and then calling them the next morning asking if they fancy coming back because nobody else knows how the coffee machine works. The numbers behind all this are genuinely staggering. By 2074, people aged 65 and over are expected to make up over a quarter of Britain's population. A quarter. That is not just a demographic shift. That is a complete transformation of what British society looks like. The old age dependency ratio, which measures how many working-age people there are to support each pensioner, is about to go absolutely haywire. And here is a truly terrifying bit. The number of people that are above state pension age could actually match the size of the working-age population within 5 decades. Read that again. Match. Equal numbers. For every person working and paying taxes, there could be one person retired and drawing a pension. The mathematics simply does not work. It cannot work. It is like trying to run a restaurant where half the customers expect free meals. Now, the committee has identified that the greatest improvement in Britain's fiscal outlook would come from encouraging people in their mid-50s to mid-60s to remain in or return to work. These are people who have often taken early retirement, been forced out by health issues, or simply decided they have had enough of the daily grind. Convincing them to come back is not going to be easy. You cannot just wave a magic wand and make people enthusiastic about re-entering a workforce that probably pushed them out in the first place. The report also highlights something rather technical but incredibly important, the cliff edges in public service pension schemes. These are specific thresholds where people suddenly face a massive loss of benefits or a huge increase in tax liability. Imagine working an extra year and discovering that doing so actually makes you worse off financially because you have crossed some arbitrary threshold. It is bonkers. Frankly, these cliff edges actively encourage people to retire early, which is precisely the opposite of what Britain needs right now. The committee is urging Rachel Reeves to remove these perverse incentives that are pushing experienced, skilled workers out of the economy when we desperately need them to stay. But here's where the political tightrope gets really narrow. The committee has cautioned against any further increase of the state pension age, which is already scheduled to rise from 66 to 68 by 2046. Now, on the surface, raising the pension age seems like an obvious solution. People live longer, so they should work longer, right? Wrong. The committee points out that raising the pension age would worsen financial hardship for those approaching retirement while providing only limited workforce gains. Why? Because many people in their 60s have already stopped working due to health issues, carrying responsibilities, or simply being pushed out of jobs. Raising the pension age does not magically keep these people employed. It just forces them to survive on benefits or savings longer before they can claim their state pension. It saves the government money in the short term but creates pensioner poverty, which costs society in other ways. Then we have the social care crisis, which the committee describes as a scandal. And honestly, they are not exaggerating. Britain's social care system is on its knees, underfunded, understaffed, and completely unprepared for the wave of elderly people who will need care in the coming decades. Here is a vicious circle. As the population ages, we need more care workers to look after elderly people. But those care workers have to come from somewhere, which means potentially pulling them away from other parts of the economy. It is robbing Peter to pay Paul, except Peter is the entire British economy, and Paul is an overwhelmed care sector that can barely function even now. The House of Lords Committee previously warned that 565,000 fewer people are currently economically active compared with pre-pandemic levels. That is over 500,000 people who have simply disappeared from the workforce. They are not unemployed in the traditional sense. They have just stopped working and stopped looking for work. And among over 50s, the numbers are even more alarming. Nearly 2 million people over 50 were claiming benefits as of August, according to the Center for Social Justice. 2 million. These are people who should, in theory, be in their peak earning years, contributing taxes, mentoring younger workers, and keeping the economy moving. Instead, they are out of the workforce entirely. Lord Wood of Anfield, who chairs the committee, gave an interview to BBC Radio 4's Today program, where he said something rather blunt. Aging is something we are just watching happening. We know that adaptation is the way forward. Just watching happening. There is something almost poetic about that phrase, is there not? It captures a sense of inevitability, like watching a slow-motion car crash and doing absolutely nothing to prevent it. Britain has known for decades that the population is aging, that birth rates are declining, that the workforce is shrinking, and yet successive governments have largely ignored the problem, hoping it would somehow sort itself out. Spoiler alert, it has not sorted itself out. Lord Wood also pointed out something genuinely concerning. There is widespread ignorance among young people about how much it actually costs to retire. Young people today are living in a world where property ownership feels impossible, wages have stagnated, and pension savings are something that parents worry about, not them. Asking a 25-year-old to think seriously about what their life will look like at 85 is like asking them to plan for life on Mars. It is so far removed from their current reality that they simply cannot conceive of it. But here is the problem. If they do not start planning and saving now, they will reach retirement age with nothing, becoming entirely dependent on a state pension system that is already creaking under the weight of current retirees. The government, Lord Wood suggests, needs to find more innovative ways of getting younger people to engage with these long-term financial realities. But what does that actually look like? Financial education in schools is patchy at best. Pensions are boring. Let us be honest, they are incredibly boring to anyone under 40. Making them exciting or engaging is like trying to make tax returns entertaining. It is a monumental challenge, and one that requires genuinely creative thinking, not just the usual government leaflets and websites that nobody reads. Lord Wood was particularly scathing about the idea of simply raising the state pension age further. He called it a red herring, pointing out that it saves the government money but increases pensioner poverty because many people have already stopped working by their 60s. This is the brutal reality that politicians often ignore. The state pension age and the actual age people stop working are not the same thing. Raising one does not change the other. It just creates a gap where people have no income from work and no state pension, forcing them to burn through savings or claim other benefits. It is a shell game, moving the costs around rather than actually solving the underlying problem. So what is Rachel Reeves supposed to do with all this? She has been handed a report that essentially says the entire British economic model for the next 50 years is broken. The workforce is shrinking, the number of pensioners is exploding, social care is in crisis, and younger generations are not saving enough for their own retirements. Oh, and by the way, Rachel, could you fix all of this whilst also dealing with the current cost of living crisis, underperforming economic growth, and the usual daily chaos of running the Treasury? Cheers! Good luck with that. The pressure on Reeves is immense. There are whispers, unconfirmed but persistent, that Starmer has given her a tight deadline to produce concrete solutions. Whether it is literally 5 days or a slightly more generous time frame, the message is clear. This problem cannot be kicked down the road any longer. The political cost of inaction is becoming too high. Voters are noticing that their parents cannot get social care. Workers in their 50s are noticing that their pension pots are not going to be enough. Younger people are noticing that home ownership is impossible, and retirement savings feel like a fantasy. The demographic time bomb is not some abstract future problem anymore. It is here, it is now, and it is making people's lives demonstrably worse. The tax incentives suggested for over 60s returning to work are an interesting idea, but they are also fraught with complications. What kind of incentives actually work? Lower income tax rates? National insurance exemptions? Tax-free bonuses for returning to work? And how do you target these incentives at the right people without creating new unfairness or loopholes? If you make it too generous, younger workers will rightly complain that they are subsidizing older workers. If you make it too stingy, it will not actually persuade anyone to return to work. Finding that balance is extraordinarily difficult. There is also the uncomfortable question of whether people actually want to return to work. Many people in their 60s who have left the workforce have done so for very good reasons. Ill health, caring for elderly parents or grandchildren, burnout from decades of work, or simply wanting to enjoy the years they have left rather than spending them in an office or factory.